Well, thank y'all for being here. I'll say that. Um, that was quite a hearing that we had today. I don't know that I've ever seen uh, such a crowd of people showing up for somebody that's been wrongly convicted. The level of support that Ector County officials have shown Mr. Reyos is truly unprecedented. And it's really taken everyone's efforts to get here today. And it includes not just the chief of police, Chief Gerke, and what he started doing a couple of years ago, but it goes back far beyond that to Dennis Sadra, who was a prosecutor with the district attorney's office way back in the late 1990s, early 2000s, who had started petitioning for James's exoneration. So I feel like what we saw today was kind of a culmination, kind of like a summary of everything that's happened to this point. How'd you feel about it?
I felt great, and it's a great relief that they finally recognized what I've been saying all these years,
Yeah.
that I am truly innocent. And this today clearly showed that, and I'm grateful for the police's police Gerke for his efforts in trying to get justice, which it commonized.
I had a hard time with that word too.
Yes, I'm happy and relieved, and there is justice still. When prior to today, I was going through an injustice, and I felt that maybe justice will never prevail, but it did today, and I'm very happy that it has come to this point.
Yeah.
Was there any testimony that really stood out to you? Anything that really made you feel?
All of the testimony that we heard today was very powerful, not just from the substance of it, but also from the source. Because it wasn't just anyone who's up on the stand saying, we think this man is innocent. It's the chief of police saying, we think this man is innocent. It's a detective, a sergeant saying, we think this man is innocent. It's a man who has been a judge, and before that he was a district attorney, and before that he was this man's attorney saying, I've known he's been innocent for the past 40 years. It's the people who are saying it. But specifically, I think the testimony that hit me the hardest was Sergeant Smith's testimony whenever he was talking about how I'm here today because I'm trying to make this right. And the reason why that was so impactful for me is because I saw the impact that it had on James. I was listening to Sergeant Smith testifying, and I looked over at James, and of course James was very touched by that testimony. And then of course in that moment, as the attorney, you're up in there, you're in it, you're focused. But then you kind of have a breath where you're like, everything is happening, What about for you?
How did it feel when the state was when the state was presenting their closing comments and everything like that? How do you feel about the way that they were basically saying their opinion on the case and everything like that? How there wasn't really any pushback of any sort really during the entire time, and there didn't seem to be any, anything they could really say against that, what was going on. How did you feel about their response to all the facts being presented?
Is that for me or for James? Or for both?
Either one of you.
You want to go?
I felt that they had the courage, the true grit to come forward, step forward and say, hey, the state made a mistake. We're here to correct it. And they did that today. I am now a free man, no longer a cloud hanging over my head that says guilty. it now hangs over my head, says, free, innocent, exonerated.
Well, we're going to get to the point where it legally says that, but the fact that like that goes to show you what an impact that has on James, because these are the people, not directly, but these are the officials who for so long have been saying, you are guilty. For 40 years saying, you are guilty, we think you're a murderer. And not just any murderer, but a very violent, very awful kind of thing that you've done. And to be told by these same people, we were wrong, and we will fight to make it right. That's the kind of thing, obviously, that is life-changing. And you don't always see that from DA's offices. A lot of times you don't have people who have the courage to stand up in a courtroom full of people and say, we got it wrong, and we're going to fight to make it right. That's exactly what they did today. And obviously it's something that's going to stay with James for the rest of his life.
What's the next step right now in the process for those who are kind of unfamiliar with it, or who are wondering, what's going to happen from here on out? What's the next step?
After this, the trial court will have to enter what's called findings of fact and conclusions of law. Essentially, the trial court will enter recommendations as to what should happen with James's conviction. It can recommend that the conviction remain the same. It can recommend that the conviction be reversed. After those recommendations are formally entered, and what that looks like is that's a paper ruling, right? Like those findings and conclusions are very voluminous rulings, but no more court, essentially. But the court will enter those rulings. Everything at that point goes on to the Court of Criminal Appeals down in Austin, which is like the Supreme Court over criminal law matters in the state of Texas. Once it gets to Austin, the judges down at that court will do whatever they want to do. But the first thing that they will hopefully do is pick up the findings and recommendations of the trial court here and see that everybody is recommending, everybody is saying that this man has been wrongly convicted and that this conviction needs to be overturned. In as much as a timeline on that's concerned, there aren't really many timelines in play anymore. The ultimate ruling comes from a court that has no deadlines. So we could have some kind of finality, some kind of end resolution within, 6 months. It could be a year, it could be 2 years, it could be 3 years. Hopefully it won't be that long, but they have as long as they need.
And for James, members of the public, of course, have come out in support of you. Innocence Project came out in support of you. How does it feel to know that not just these groups are behind you, but also the archdioceses themselves of Amarillo and San Antonio, as well as the entire New Mexican legislature? How does that feel?
It feels great to know that they are very supportive of me, and that they, again, I say they recognize that injustice, and they want to correct it, to not let it linger on and on and on. And I truly laud them for coming forward and expressing their belief in my innocence. And that's great to hear that justice is still moving along, and that even though there is an injustice, it can be corrected. And that's what happened today.
I feel like today, people have, in powerful and influential entities have been saying that James is innocent for decades. And it's kind of like it just kind of all went into a black hole somewhere. And today, for the first time, I feel like James's story was actually told in front of a tribunal who actually listened and can do something about it. And I felt very, very good about how the hearing went today.
Judge Whalen seemed to be I got the impression, delighted by what happened in the courtroom. Like his final kind of words were really moving. Did you get that sense as well, Ms. Clayton?
I think that there was a point in the hearing today where everything kind of clicked for him. I think it was during Sergeant Smith's testimony, whenever he was talking about how we had gone through these 3 individuals who had been identified, and we were getting to the part where we're talking about the last man who had been identified and how he had checked into the motel just an hour after Father Ryan. And I think at that point, for me at least, and maybe I'm wrong, but to me that was when everything I think kind of clicked for him. And I say clicked, I don't know. I don't want to be presumptuous as to what it is he was thinking or is thinking or which ways he's leaning. But you feel a shift in energy. And I feel like during Scotty's testimony was when we were really getting into the meat and potatoes of the matter. I think people started understanding and seeing that we're not just saying that this man is innocent, we're proving it. And we're not just saying that they didn't get the right guy for Father Ryan's murder, but we're proving who it was they should have gone after. So I have a very good feeling about Judge Whalen. I know that he was very attentive. He took everything very, very seriously. And I think that and maybe it's flattery on my own part, but I think that people recognize whenever we're very serious about this, and this is not something that we're not just in here advocates. We're very serious about this. We've done all of this work, and it's time. This is it for us, and I like to think also that he recognizes this is it for James. If this judge does not recommend exoneration for James, or if it ends up at the Court of Criminal Appeals and they're not going to give us any relief, then there's really not a lot else that we can do. So this is it. This is our shot. And I'm happy with what we did today. We still have a lot more work to do, but we did what needed to be done today, and that is we started the process of getting James fully exonerated.
We go all over the state litigating cases, and we don't go into court unless we're absolutely convinced that someone is actually innocent. And notwithstanding that, it's not unusual for us to be dismissed as, whatever. And so it's always a there's always a hurdle to get over to convince whoever, the prosecuting authority, the judicial authority, or whatever, that we are serious, as Allison says, that this is a very serious matter. We are serious, and we have an innocent client who's been wrongfully convicted, and that's a very serious matter that we expect to be taken seriously. And I think Allison was able to get over that hurdle today in court.
So you were at the state legislature recently. There was a House bill, or was it a Senate bill? I want to kind of research more about it, but it was about this very issue where the state could be working more with innocence work and helping advocate for innocent clients. Is that right?
I'm not familiar with that.
Okay.
There are several House bills in which the legislature wants to micromanage district attorneys' offices, but I'm not familiar with the one you're referring to. There are some rules in front of the a state bar committee geared toward the way prosecutors should ethically handle post-conviction innocence cases. That, and basically the rules we're advocating for I think we saw in action in the courtroom today. I think these prosecutors handled this exactly like they should have and did it very ethically. But there are prosecutors all over the state that are very much against these rules. And maybe would not have handled this case the way these prosecutors did.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But I would say that so many times with district attorneys' offices, they will say, our job is to not see that, that we just get a conviction, but to see that justice is served. So many times when you get behind closed doors, you find that is an empty platitude, that they're not sincere when they say, like, we really want to make sure justice is done. That's not what they mean. But today I think we saw especially in the closing statements of Mr. Barber, that I really think that they do care about justice for James in this case.
I know that, James, when we spoke earlier, you mentioned this to me, but, for those who maybe didn't hear about that or anything, and maybe if you all want to pitch into with your own versions of this, what is the main takeaway that, just the public should get from this, that you think that needs to be heard or known about? What do you hope, hopefully there will be justice for you and your case, but what does the public need to know about cases like this in general, and like what happened to you? What needs to be heard?
That there is injustice that happens in the court system, and when it does, it needs to be rectified as soon as possible, and don't let this linger on and on. I mean, I've been locked up 23 years, and I've talked to a lot of people in prison that some are in the same boat as me, and they try to contact people who will listen to them. I mean, when you're innocent, you just don't get up one morning and say, hey, I want to be innocent today. No, you are innocent. You know that in your heart. The evidence proves that you're innocent, so you fight on and on until justice prevails. And that's the takeaway that I've seen today in the courtroom. There were people there that want to see justice prevail, that true justice must prevail today. And that's what my former attorney explained, that he wants that to happen. And plus the police officer, Scotty, he did the same thing. He knows the full details about the case and wants to let justice prevail because he knows the true perpetrators in this crime. And like he said, it's not me. So justice must prevail.
And it's never too late.
That's exactly right. For me, it's taken, 41 plus years for it to occur. And justice will always prevail in the end based on the facts of the case. And you don't deny justice. You don't overlook the evidence that proves an innocent person innocent based on the evidence that is presented during the trial.
And then the only thing I would add to that would be, whenever people run for office, they will often run on a very strong law and order platform. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that platform. There's not. It's just one of the consequences of being so incredibly tough on crime all the time is that mistakes will happen. This is a human system. There is a rate of error. Mistakes are going to happen. So if you're going to be insistent on law and order, on being a law and order county, you must also applaud your public officials whenever they can recognize that we messed up and we are going to fight to make it right. Both of those things, there has to be a balance in it. We saw a balance today, but we don't always see that. I personally, as an attorney, have experienced instances where I have been told, behind closed doors, we know that your man's innocent. But publicly, we're going to support every single conviction that comes out of this county because they are a very hard law and order kind of county. It's not a healthy balance. We need to be able to have a balance. And so whenever public officials are willing to come out and support the pleas of the wrongly convicted to recognize those innocent men and women who have been wrongly convicted, that is something that should be applauded.
I wholeheartedly agree with what she said, that justice must prevail for everybody, you know. It doesn't have to happen in a criminal court. It could happen in civil court, or it could happen in out in society. People get mistreated here and there, but when they do, it needs to be corrected. That if there's facts that point to a person's right, then let's make it right and not continue go down the wrong path.
Anything else? Okay. Then we're done. Thank you so much. We really do appreciate y'all. Thanks. You did great. You feel good?
Yes, that's what I just express myself the way I feel, you know.
Yeah.
And I like I said to you before that I don't hold any grudges against